Hello good people of Wandertale, my name is Intrepid Lee. I'm a full-time traveller of a decade and travel writer, here to talk today about one of my all-time favourite beach spots. And if you follow me, you would know that my favourite beach spots include no tourists. So this is a super secluded spot, and one that if you're ever in the Caribbean, you should definitely go and check out. Before I tell you why I love this spot so much and exactly where it is, let me fill you in a little bit on the story of how we got there. So my fiancée Kaylee and I, we were on the east coast of Nicaragua, where we met a middle-aged guy called Dan. And Dan's a Canadian wilderness fireman. And basically we came together and we hitched our way, bussed our way, and riverboated over a 2-day journey to Nicaragua's Pacific coast. So that's on the west. And we got to a small town called Bluefields just a day before Kaylee's 29th birthday. So we're like super excited, we want to go and get our ferry tickets and all that. And on getting down to the port, we're told that the boat isn't running for 5 more days because of high winds out on the Caribbean Sea. And you can imagine our excitement turned to pretty much disappointment. We were pretty upset that we weren't going to be on a beach for Kaylee's birthday celebrating. Instead we're in this sort of ramshackle, very basic Caribbean town. I mean, it's beautiful, absolutely lovely. It's not overdeveloped, it's got a very authentic feel, but it's not where we expected to be kind of stranded for Kaylee's birthday. But, you know, we try and make the best out of a good situation, and that day I was having a haircut on the street by a young local Nicaraguan called Carlos, and he was just chatting away, you know, super nice guy, a great English skill, and he said that tomorrow on Kaylee's birthday he could show us around and perhaps take us to a secret swimming spot out in the countryside. Oh, hang on a sec, I just need some water. I don't know why there, my mouth was just going super dry. Oh, that's better. So, I think I was just talking about the swimming spot. So the next day he takes us out into the countryside, like an hour in a taxi, and it's this beautiful sort of like little lake in amongst grass and greenery and nature, and there's a small local bar there with some verandas outside, a patio area where you can sit, and we could go swimming in this lake. And we stayed there all afternoon, and it was certainly not what we expected to be doing, but we had this great time. And basically, so we stayed in Bluefields for the 5 days. After Kaylee's birthday, it was just a sort of relaxing time where we'd go and check out, I guess what you could call the local sites, which kind of was like the lobster bars and restaurants that were right on this town's riverfront. Because Bluefields is on the ocean, but also on the end of the Rio Escondido, which flows out into the Caribbean Sea. So eventually 5 days passed, and we could jump on the ferry. And we got there pretty early, like 45 minutes before it was due to leave, and this ferry was already absolutely packed to the brim. And I'm talking, there was no room to sit on the floor, let alone on a proper seat. But conspicuously enough, on the bow of this ship, this ferry, there was 2 cargo boxes, you know, around about waist height, and there was nobody sitting on them. On the other side there was a group of teenagers on 2 cargo boxes, and this is right in the ferry's bow, right at the front. And they had a little puppy with them actually, a very cute little thing. But they had those cargo boxes and there was nobody on these ones. We thought, oh, this is perfect. I had a bad back at the time. I thought, oh, I could lay just over one of these and, you know, be sorted for the whole trip. We've kind of gone through the estuaries of the Rio Escondido, and I've been lying out and feeling great. The sun's kind of coming down. There's a little bit of a breeze. We're going past miniature islands with like beautiful greenery. Ah, it's just perfect. And then after 45 minutes, we come away from the land and look like we're about to head out into the great big ocean, like there's nothing to be seen in front of us. And we got this great view. This great view of pretty much what seemed to be impending doom. Where the Rio Escondido meets with the ocean, there was just this huge mess of turbulent waves crashing. And I could almost hear like dun 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 going down in my head as the captain sort of slowed going towards this this opening into the ocean. After 5 minutes kind of hovering and I guess debating, the captain decided to plunge us forwards towards these menacing looking waves. All 200 souls on board. There was no consultation there. And basically we go down this first big wave and we sail down it like we're on a roller coaster, and we go up and then down a second wave, gathering speed as we do so, over, and as we crest it almost feels like this huge ferry comes completely out of the water, but dives back down into a third wave which swamps the boat with water. Like I thought we were in that split second going to go down. There was so much water that the cargo boxes were floating. There were huge bags of corn that floated over my legs, and I was you know, I'm a big guy, I've got big chunky legs, and this huge bag of corn floated over, and clinging to it is this poor puppy who's not even got a leash, and he's awash with everything. There's a woman even floating towards the rails, and I realised that we're not going to sink. The water is like flowing off the gunwales, if that's what you call it. And luckily this woman didn't go over. Who knows if anybody else did, because the captain didn't stop to do any checks, you know, count the 200 souls or anything. We just continued onwards into the rough Caribbean Sea, sorry. And this is when we realised why these cargo boxes hadn't been taken up by anybody other than the teenagers and the stupid foreigners. So basically what happened then was we had to sit there and get hit in the face by a wave. I'd say at least one wave every 60 seconds. You can imagine the winds like whipping into us as well. And so with this continuous action, the sun was beating down, would dry us, the salt crystals would kind of like form all over our body, and then another wave, just as we dried up, would come and slap us in the face. And I swear, I promise, like this happened at least once every 60 seconds for 5 whole hours. There was no escaping this situation. What made it even worse was where I was sitting, there was no backrest. You couldn't lie down because every 20 seconds the boat would slam down onto a big wave and jolt the entire ferry. So I had to sit straight backed, no support, for this 5 hours whilst waves continually slapped me in my face. After 3 hours, I needed to go to the toilet. And as you can imagine, this is a difficult task when the ferry's rocking and swaying and, you know, going all over the place, and there's people sitting, like, crowding on the floor. You gotta try and step over them, and again, my back's bad. I don't want to keep complaining about it, you know, I'm not a complainer, but it was really bad. And I'm like making my way over all these people, and I get to the hatch to the cabin. And you see it's completely packed in there. It's gonna be a nightmare to try and step over everybody and not like tread on anybody's toes or thumbs. So I open the big hatchway, step through it, and as I do so, the ferry's hit by a wave on the starboard and sent rocking. The hatch slams before I have time to take out my thumb. And I can't even feel it. I'm so wet, my entire body's numb, and I just look at my thumb and it's bleeding all around the nails, and straight away I can see the whole thing's turning black. Oh, it was a painfully agonizing moment. It was probably one of the most painfully agonizing moments in my entire life. So I eventually get over 7, 8 more people, make it to the heads. It's this tiny thing with pee all over the seat, and another wave hits the side of the boat, and I fall backwards into the toilet. The door slams, and I just sit there in sweet relief, despite my back and my thumb being in agony. So anyway, that was the worst boat journey of my life without a doubt, and I've been on a lot of boat journeys on some very, very rough oceans. So after 5 hours, we made it to a place called Bighorn Island. Classic image of a paradisical Caribbean island. You know, think of that, and that is Bighorn Island. It's not that much development going on there. There's only one or two very fancy hotels, and even those aren't huge. They're like 2-story buildings and very modest sort of builds. I see a drink here. My mouth is very dry tonight, I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not used to talking this much. So yeah, it's beautiful. It's got the opal azure sort of waters surrounding it. There's a reef that stops the rough waves from coming in. In fact, that day when we finally sailed in after 5 hours of splashing through waves, we couldn't believe how calm it was there. It was like a whole different world. So as you can imagine, this big corn island is very quiet. Not much going on. It's cheap to get around. Hotels are about the same price as they are on the mainland, which isn't bad. We got a hotel room with 3 beds in it, and that cost us, how much is that? About 10 to 15 pounds, so about 20 to 30 US dollars for 3 of us in the room. So that's really not too bad at all. And the price of food's really good there. You can get a great lobster dish with rice for $3-4, and that's nice chunky lobster tail meat too, not like the fake stuff or anything. So it really is like a paradise island. It's somewhere that I would highly recommend people to go. You can, instead of, sorry, I've got the burps now. 1 second. Instead of taking that ferry journey like we did, there is an airport that you can fly to from the capital of Nicaragua, which is Manila. So that's a lot easier sort of way to get there if you just want to do a week-long holiday. And like I say, I can highly recommend you come down here. So after a day's recovery, I had to lie in bed and sort of spend some time resting. We went out to explore this new space, the new island, and we decided that we want to stay here for over a week. After that journey, we needed it. So we went out to explore, and the cab driver took us to the most popular beach on the island. It's a long, straight stretch of sand that's beautiful white, no development on it, just like a what do you call it, a tiki hut sort of bar, small setup there, and yeah, just a huge stretch of beautiful water. And we liked it. The afternoon went well. The 3 of us sat there underneath one of the palm-covered roofs for shade. We drank some cheap beers, like 50-cent beers. Frequently went swimming to cool off, and it was just after that journey from hell, this was certainly heaven. But you know, it was the most popular beach on the island, and that means that there's a lot of people there, right? And I'm the type of guy that likes my own space. I don't really like to follow the crowd too much. I prefer to get away from it as much as possible. So after at the end of the day, it was Kaylee and I think we just went for a walk together. We decided to try and co-steer our way back around the island. And after about half an hour sort of going around, we found a couple of other beaches that weren't as nice. They were smaller, and there was like local buildings, small huts on these ones. But eventually we got to like the 3rd or 4th beach, and there was a boatyard with lads working on the small fishing boats, and a really small, I'm talking tiny tiki bar. And we walked up to it and thought, well, this place looks closed, because it had no windows. It was all bamboo sort of walls, and the windows it seemed been bambooed up. So we looked, the door's open, and wasn't much going inside. We said, hello, anybody here? And you go, yo man, what's up? Sorry, that was my terrible attempt at a Caribbean accent. And this old fisherman fella, you know, probably about 50 years old, no teeth, grey hair, kind of like, he's a very skinny man. He comes out of the back, and he tells us he's open. He's open for business, and he pulls up 2 plastic chairs from inside and takes them out onto the beach. And you know, the door's right obviously on the beach. Sets them there for Katie and I, and says, I'm not going to try and do the Caribbean accent again. He says, I'll bring over a couple of beers for you guys. And this is beautiful. Looking down, we can only see the lads working on the boats there. And looking the other way, it's just palm trees and no signs of anybody or anything. Small beach, maybe you know, 100 meters, 200 meters long, and there was sort of small waves rolling in on this beach, whereas the other one was very flat, calm. You know, good for families, but we want to have a bit of fun when we go in the water, right? Play around in the waves. So yeah, old man time, he brings back 2 beers with a napkin on, as they do, to wipe off the top. And we take a sip of these condensation-covered bottles. Oh, it's making me thirsty now thinking about it. Hang on. And these bottles reeked of fishing bait. And it became very clear that the bottles of beer were stored in the same fridge as the bait. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the drink inside, so it was even cheaper than the tourist beach by like 10 cents. So we were still happy, even though they made us think of, well, my home of Guernsey, and my dad especially was a fisherman. They made me think of that every time we were drinking a couple, you know, responsibly and such. So this little beach, it turns out, I tried to look it up when we went home that evening. It's not on maps. It's not known. It's a very local spot. The only people that we saw going up and down it were school children returning home after the day. Like I said, the working lads on the boats, and mothers dragging children to see neighbours. There were, I think we saw one other tourist stumble along that way during our whole time. And if you ever want to find it, you have to go to a place called Waula Point, W-A-U-L-A. You basically have to walk around there from the road, which is obviously, you can see where the road is on the map. And if you make your way around that point, you'll be sure in for a treat. Now, Kaylee, Dan and I went back to that bar every day for a full week. We spent afternoons there just relaxing in the beautiful sands and waters of this paradise Caribbean island spot. And I can highly recommend and tell you, I can promise you, that if you go to this island looking for a nice Caribbean adventure, that's exactly what you will find. And it's so peaceful, it's safe, the locals are friendly, the food's cheap but delicious and fresh. I mean, I can't speak more praises about this island. And if you do make it there, please go visit Old Fisherman Time and say hi from Intrepid Lee.